A man calls the police because his wife and his two little girls are gone. An officer comes to the door. And in the next 90 seconds, before a single piece of evidence is in, that officer already feels that something is wrong. Not because of what the man says, because of how he says it. This is the Chris Watts case. You have probably heard the ending. What most people never had explained to them is the part the cameras caught in real time. The small tells. The word he chose. The thing he cried about. Watch closely, and the man gives himself away long before he ever confesses. August 13th, 2018, Frederick, Colorado. Shanann Watts flew home from a work trip at 2 in the morning, 15 weeks pregnant with a boy they had already named Nico. A friend walked her to the door. By that afternoon, Shanann, 4-year-old Bella, and 3-year-old Celeste were all unreachable, and that friend was pounding on a door Chris would not open. So she called the police. And when the first officer asked to step inside and look around, watch the very first thing Chris reaches for. Not his phone, not his wife's sister. An excuse to leave. He says he was about to go for a walk, to clear his head. His family is missing, and his instinct is to get out of the house. Inside, the house is telling a story, the man is not. Shannon's medication, still out. Her purse, still here. Her wedding ring, set on the counter. Her phone, wedged down the side of the couch. And both girls' favorite blankets, the ones they could not sleep without, still folded in the house. Think about what Chris needs you to believe. That a pregnant mother woke 2 sleeping toddlers in the dark and walked out, leaving her medicine, her ring, her phone, and the only things her children cannot sleep without. That version of events has a problem. None of it is how a person actually leaves. Now listen to the man himself, because this is the first tell and you can hear it. When Chris talks about his own daughters, pay attention to the words he picks. Not my girls. Not Bella and Cece. Those kids.
I love those kids. With all my heart. And nothing in this world would ever make me do anything to these kids. Or my wife.
A father, 3 days into the worst thing that can happen to a parent, reaching for his own children and landing on. Investigators call that distancing language. You and I just hear it and feel something cold. Then there was the neighbor. A man named Nate, 2 doors down, had a security camera pointed at the street, and that camera had been running that morning. It had recorded Chris, in the dark, loading something heavy and wrapped into his work truck. The detectives did something simple. They sat Chris down in front of that television, and they pressed play. And they watched him watch himself. He shifts, he fidgets, he cannot hold still. He is seeing the one thing he was certain no one else had seen, and the camera in the room is catching every second of it. And while the evidence quietly piles up, Chris does the thing certain people do when they believe they are the smartest person in the room. He goes on television. He stands on his porch in front of reporters and plays the grieving husband. He says the house feels empty. He says he just wants his girls to come back. And he is calm. The whole country is watching, and he is calm. By the next day, he agrees to come to the police station on his own, no lawyer, still sure he can talk his way out. And in that interview room, he builds a story, and the story is about love. He says the marriage was ending, that they sat down and cried about a separation. Listen to where his emotion actually goes. There it is. He cries. But
like we felt the disconnection was there, like falling out of love and trying to stay together, maybe just for the kids' sake, but realizing that doing like our homework is not, most of the time that's not.
Watch what he cries about. The marriage, the separation, losing his wife. Now watch what happens when the detective asks him about the one thing a father in his position should not be able to stop crying about. He weeps that he is leaving his wife.
Bella and Celeste are the light of my life. I'd do anything for those girls. I'd step in front of a bullet, step in front of a train for those girls.
He does not weep for 2 missing daughters. Behavior analysts will tell you a simple thing about grief. People mourn what they have actually lost. Chris had not lost his daughters in the way a searching father loses a child. He knew exactly where they were. They offer Chris a polygraph. He takes it because he still believes he is in control. He scores a -18. On that test, anything worse than a -2 is a failure. He did not just fail. He failed completely. And the agent across the table tells him so plainly, and then lets the silence sit. And in that silence, Chris breaks first. He asks if he can talk to his dad. They bring his father into the room. And with Ronnie sitting beside him, the story finally cracks. But watch the shape of the confession, because even now, cornered, he is still negotiating. The detectives hand him a door. They stop treating him like a monster and offer him a softer story. Maybe, they suggest, Shanann hurt the girls, and you reacted. It is an out. And Chris walks straight through it. He says Shanann killed the children, and that he killed them. He confesses to murder and wraps it in one final lie. The evidence said the opposite. There was no walking in on anything. There was no snapping. The timeline, the searches, the messages to another woman that same morning. There was a plan. Here is what actually happened. In the early hours of that morning, after Shanann came home, Chris strangled her in their own bedroom. Then he loaded her body and his 2 living daughters into his work truck and drove them to the oil site where he worked, a place called Cervi 319. He buried Shanann and her unborn son in a shallow grave by an oil tank. And he put Bella and Celeste down through an 8-inch hatch into the crude oil inside the tanks, because he believed the oil would erase them. Investigators found that 4-year-old Bella had injuries that suggest she fought for her life. Celeste was 3. She never got the chance. On November 6, 2018, to take the death penalty off the table, Chris Watts pleaded guilty to murdering Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and his unborn son. No trial, no jury for him to perform for. At sentencing, the judge called it the most inhumane and vicious crime he had seen on the bench and gave Chris Watts 5 life sentences, 3 of them back-to-back, with no parole, ever. He will die in prison. Go back and watch that first body cam again, knowing what you know now. The calm. The walk to clear his head. Those kids. It is all there in the first 10 minutes before anyone had found a thing. The case was never really a mystery. It was a man who believed no one was reading him on camera being read. Shanann was 34. Nico never got to be born. They had a husband and a father whose one job was to protect them, and he is the reason they needed protecting. I am Carson Morgan. Their names were Shanann, Bella, and Celeste.